Yo, I have a 2008 Mazda 3 in here. The AC's not working on this. It's got a good charge in it. So first thing I did was attack this AC compressor. I unplugged it right here. The wire's really short, so it's a really big pain in the butt to get at. And I tested continuity to this wire. On my power probe, there's supposed to be a negative right now because there's supposed to be a continuity to ground. And when I induce power, I'm supposed to hear this compressor clutch right here kicking in, and it's not doing that. So the compressor clutch is bad, and there's two options you can go. You can take all of the refrigerant out of the system and replace the compressor, or get a clutch. I found this Chinese thing on eBay because I tried calling around for just a clutch, and all the parts stores wanted to sell me a compressor. They all said they didn't have a clutch for it. Apparently they like to make money. So I got this. The only thing I see that's goofy about it is the connector's wrong. So I'm going to have to deal with that. But other than that, this should work. It looks like a decent part. This is the coil. This is going to be the actual bad part in the compressor. Somewhere in this coil winding, there's no connection anymore in this wire. And this is an electromagnetic coil. You put 12 volts in it and it makes a big electromagnet. And it'll pull this down onto this and engage your clutch. Pretty simple system. First thing I'm going to do is get the splash shield off. There's supposed to be other splash shields down here, but they're gone. So this is going to make my life kind of easy. A couple 10 millimeters here. And I got one of these goofy Phillips screw clip things. You just kind of put light pressure on this and unscrew it. Take out the center. This has one of the goofy stretch to fit belts on here. There's no tensioner on this thing. There's a tool to get them on and off. I always just drop the compressor. It's 4 bolts. It's really easy to do. I got to take this shield off of here. They're just 12 millimeters. And then there's 4 12 millimeters for the compressor. I'm just going to loosen them up. Then after that, there's a 21 millimeter on this crankshaft bolt. I'm just going to pull it over just a little bit and crank it over. And eventually, it'll just crank it right off. I'll put it on the same way. I haven't looked up the specs on this, but there's an air gap between the pulley and the compressor clutch. So before I take it off, I'm probably going to try to look up some specs for it and see if I can find it. But before I take it off, I want to see what the clearance is in between these two. And a 4 seems kind of snug, and a 5 kind of holds its own weight there. So this is about 4 to 5 thousandths of an inch, the clearance between these two. So I want to make sure I got something close to that when I put the new compressor clutch on. There's a 5 millimeter here. Allen. I'm going to take that off, and this should come out. A lot of times there's shims in here. Yeah, see, there's a couple of shims just hanging out here. They were inside of here. I'm going to keep those shims because I might need them. You don't want to lose those. A lot of times they come with the new compressor too. I have a couple of snap rings I can take off of here. I can pull my wire back. This just slides right off. And I got another one for the coil. Wow, that's all cooked. Nice. Looks like it got a little hot. I should be able to just get behind this and pry it, take it off. There's a locating pin right here, so it only goes on one way. I have a carbide scraper here. I'm just gonna kind of get some of this excess crust off of here. Now the wire for this is way too long. Looks like it got squished a little bit. No big deal, it should be okay. I can test it too. My power probe's still hooked up to the car. I can just put the ground right on the ground right here. And then if I touch the power, see I got a green, my negative's on now. And if I energize this thing, it should have a magnetic charge. And it does. See, it holds on to my stuff. And then I let go of the power. So it's working. This wire's a little long, which is fine. I'm gonna swap out this wire. I'm gonna put a waterproof connector on here. This one's blue. I probably could use a red one. I really don't want this sliding around either. This kind of protects the wire a little bit where it's important. So I'm just going to slather some liquid tape on the wire. That way when it dries, it'll just keep it stuck on there real good. It won't move. These are nice connectors, these waterproof connectors, because they shrink. Heat gun works a little better. Just so long as it shrinks and you see all that clear stuff seeping out all the way around the wire, you know that's a good waterproof connection. There's a bag that comes with a new bolt, a couple of the shims, and 2 of them clips. And I'm going to stab my extra long wire down here in the hole and make sure that lines up right. Okay, I got it. I measured these two. It looks like the aftermarket one is 7/1000ths of an inch thicker than the factory one, so I'm going to use the factory one. And there's a taper on these too. On the inside, both of them have a taper on it. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a taper on this side and there's no taper on the other side. So you always want the tapered side facing out. Yeah, that's snapped in there. Okay. Now before I go ahead and put any shims on this, I'm going to use no shims and just stick it on here. And it is touching. I'm going to try these 2 aftermarket shims first. Stick them in here. And I got them in there real nice. And something happened. It turned sideways on me. We'll try it again. This time I'm going to put the bolt in here first. Hopefully it'll keep it from moving sideways on me. And it's still touching. So I put the 2 factory shims back in here. Now it turns. I'm going to snug this down just a little bit. Make sure that pulley still turns. The clutch doesn't touch. I looked it up online. They're giving me a measurement of 8/1000ths of an inch, so I could tighten this up just a little bit. I'm just going to start playing with the shims until I get the right thickness out of this. Okay, I just have this snug for right now, and I used 1 of the stock shims and 1 of the aftermarket shims, because the aftermarket ones were thinner than the stock ones. And that's a 7/1000ths right there. And that's an 8. So it's perfect. I'm going to do a final torque on this at 11 foot-pounds, which is 132 inch-pounds. I'm just going to double check it real quick. 9. I'm going to go ahead and put this belt back on. I'm going to put it all the way on the AC pulley side. Stretch it on. Well, I can bolt all this up. 15 foot-pounds is going to be good on these. And I'll plug in the cute little wire. And the dumb little thing isn't working. Well, I misdiagnosed this bad boy. It did have a bad compressor clutch coil, but that was the problem and not the cause. The cause is the fact that this AC compressor is locking up. So what probably happened with this thing is the clutch was engaged, the compressor locked up. I turned it before, it was turning, but apparently there's a bad spot in it. There, it just locked up on me. So it was probably engaged, the compressor locked up, and the pulley just kept friction on the clutch until it burnt up the coil. So this thing needs a compressor after all. Well, it was a cheap enough part. I'm going to have to eat all the labor on that and put a compressor on this thing. Don't make the same mistake I did. Okay, bye.